I'm John Beaudin. This is Rock History Music, and we talk about the Righteous Brothers with someone who was there quite a long time with them, singer-songwriter Jeri Lynne. Jeri Lynne has been in the industry since she was 10 years old, doing jingles for the famous radio station KHJ and many other stations after that. She kept at it, working with bands like our subject today, the Righteous Brothers, Michael McDonald, Jeff Bridges, B.J. Thomas, Crystal Gale, Tony Basil. She was Peter Tork of the Monkees' manager, and she's also performed with David Foster, Warren Wiebe, the Judds, and many more. She'll be talking about her Todd Rundgren project during this series. And by the way, if you want to see the entire interview, it's on her sister station right now at Rock History Book. Jeri Lynne on her years with the Righteous Brothers. We're going to talk about a few gigs here, but how does that happen? I mean, obviously, you got to have the talent. I always say this. My son edits my videos. He hates hearing me say this over and over again, but you got to do the work to get in the room. So you deserve to be there, and that's great. But how'd you get that one?
Well, the way I got that job was actually pretty cool. They owned a nightclub called The Hop. It was actually originally called Music City, I believe, down in the Orange County area, Southern California. And there was a 50s rock and roll show that they had there called Rock Around the Clock. And so, and it was a cast, and it was really, Bill Medley put together an amazing rock and roll show of all these classic rock tunes and from 50s and 60s. And but before I actually got into that band, I was working with a 14-piece horn band called Bim Bam. And Bim Bam was made up of members of Redbone. Remember the band Redbone? Mm-hmm. Come and Get Your Love. Butch Valera and Tony Bellamy were the two male leads, and myself. And we went through a few girl singers. We had Dee Dee Gray, and then we had Diane Newberry and Lisa Burns. But I was the longest lasting member because I was not going to give that gig to anybody. That was my gig. And because I got to go in there and sing Tina Turner and Aretha and just all because I had the big loud chops. 5'3", very small, 105 pounds, but I sounded like a freight train coming at you. So that's how I got that job. And when the Righteous Brothers used to come see because we performed in their club, it was called Medleys before it became The Hop. And they used to come watch our show, and they'd get up and sing a couple of their tunes with us. But then they hired me after seeing me and hearing me sing with that band. But when they said, yeah, but we really need a piano player. So it's between you and another girl. And I said, I play piano because I had my own rock band at the time, So I had to. And the funny thing is, I went out and did a couple gigs with them as a singer, just some local dates. But then I had to come back and audition on piano because our manager at the time said, yeah, well, I don't know if she's good enough to play piano, though, So, so I went, okay, well, you already know I can sing, so I will bring my piano in and I will audition for you. And, I got the job, and then the rest is history. Then I was with them for 14 years.
I love the audition stories. Is there a sense, obviously the history, that's one of the biggest duos of all time, that were you intimidated, but you were seasoned at the time? So how did it feel?
I wasn't really intimidated, only because, when we were working in their nightclub, we saw them all the time. And they were just like Joe everybody, they were hanging out and sitting with the band and drinking beers and getting up and sitting in with us and singing just old time rock and roll songs, not even their songs, just having fun. And they were always so easy to be around. They were real comfortable. They were comfortable with us. We were comfortable with them. And so, and I'm kind of like, there's very few people I'm like really starstruck by. I'm usually pretty comfortable around people, artists, but, and them, I felt like they were family because we all had, we'd worked together doing all kinds of stuff. So when I took that next step to go join the band and go on tour with them all those years, it stayed pretty much that way. we were like a family, you know. It was me, and it was at first we had two other girls who sang background, and I was on piano singing background, and then they scaled the band down. But they kept me, thank you God, because I played piano. And because Bill had a big hit with The Time of My Life from the Dirty Dancing movie. So clearly one of the other guys wasn't going to cover that. So, so they kept me for that reason as well. So I got to stay there.
What did you learn about Bobby and Bill coming out of that? Was there a thing that you came out with, and may he rest in peace, Bobby? By the way, you weren't on tour. Were you on tour with him when Bobby passed?
No, I had left the year before. I had retired. I got to that point where I just was done. And I was also going through a transition, in my marriage. And so and my son was little. He was our son, I should say. He was 3 at the time. And I thought, this isn't going to work. So I made the decision to say goodnight, thank you and good night. And I came home to raise my son. And I left LA and came to the desert, out in Palm Springs desert, because I wanted to go somewhere peaceful that was kind of small town-ish, where I could really, give him my full attention and the best possible, scenario for small towns better in that sense to me, because LA, you just get lost in the shuffle in big cities. I had been there a long time, 14 years with some breaks in between here and there. And some of it just local, some of it, the major traveling. But yeah, when you've reached that point, and I loved the guys. They're, like I said, they were like two dads or 2 older brothers, and the guys in the band, they always looked out for me. We really were a family, and but with the way things were at home, it just didn't feel right. I knew I needed to come home, and I just knew I was done. And I've in between that tour, I was also doing other tours as well. I was with Stacy Q at the time, and she was really popular at that time. She had all the big hits, and so I was juggling tours, working in town, doing sessions. Because one thing about session work is if you're gone too long, they forget you. So I would be on the road and say, I'm going to be home these dates. If you need me, and I was, pretty relentless about it, because I'd seen how it worked, where people just forget you and then you never get called again. So I was like on the road scheduling my one and only 3-week opening. I packed it full of sessions so that they would, keep calling me, so.
Like when you looked at Righteous Brothers, Unchained Melody, as of couple of weeks ago when we were going to talk, was at 310 million streams. You've Lost That Love and Feeling was at 94. But were there songs when you went in there, because this is such a large, you can't, even if you live under a rock, you've heard You've Lost That Love and Unchained Melody, You've Lost It. There's no way through osmosis, but more than that, you've heard it firsthand. Were there certain songs from their repertoire that when you played it, you kind of were in the moment and going, this is it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the ones that were button pushers for me were the ones that weren't the biggest hits. They had a song called Just Once in My Life. It's a Barry Mann and Cynthia Wilde song that, if you're a fan, you of course know this song, but not everybody. It's not one of those radio ready songs. It's more of the album filler type song, even though, it was a huge song, but yeah, I find myself attracted to those songs because, the ones you hear over and over and over and over, you can, I can do them in my sleep with my eyes closed and one hand behind my back, but those other songs are absolute works of art as well, and that's where I tend to drift. I want to hear the stories. I like the storytellers. I like the artists that are the storytellers. I like the songs that tell a story. That's why we're so enamored with, Laura Nyro and Joni Mitchell and Elton John and Billy Joel, because they tell these great stories about guys in the community or the bar or this woman down on her luck or it's like that's the meat of it for me. I want to hear the story. And that's why I became a songwriter, because that spoke to me more than anything.
Yeah. I like the Billy Joel. I've always liked, because we used to have this saying in radio commercials, and I used to try to teach our writers this. I'm going, don't say I'm a police officer, say I'm on the force. Make their brain work a little bit. They just unconsciously they're going to get, but don't feed it all. Like, Billy Joel says he can't drive with a broken back, but at least he can polish the fenders, stuff like that. I mean, you're visualizing, and Bernie Taupin with his words was very much, he'd make me work a little bit without explaining it all to me. And that's a good writer.
Yeah. Right.
By the way, did you guys do Rock and Roll Heaven, the Alan O'Day song, which was a comeback for them? You guys did that, right?
Yeah, we did. We did. In fact, there were two different versions of it, though, so it got tricky now and then because the original version, how do I say this? Later on, the more artists that we lost, in other words, there would be additional lyrics to support that artist that we just lost. So sometimes, now it got tricky once in a while. We were out on the road, and Janice gave us Jimmy. Oh no, Jimmy gave us a piece of a heart. Otis Dog of the Bay. So, but they started changing the artists and the lyric lines, and we're all going, okay. So at a certain point, I just suggested, let's just leave the singer, because, we sang a lot of background parts during these songs. I said, how about, since you're going to change the artist names and their tagline for their songs, how about we just wait to the chorus? Because at least we know that's going to be the same all the time, instead of us trying to figure out which, because, they would screw lyrics up too. And then consequently, so would we. So.
Remember, the entire interview will be on our sister channel, Rock History Book. It's there right now. If you want to help the channel, the 2 Ps, you can make a donation on PayPal or get early access to our videos via Patreon. Like our videos, subscribe to our channel, comment on the videos, and share them on social media where you think they're appropriate. More from Jeri Lynne in the next 2-3 days. I'm John Beaudin. This is Rock History Music.